Hi guys, Thogrey here with a new video, and this video will be my ultimate tier list video for PvP Season 4 of Shadowlands, and we know that they will not do any balance changes or it will be very minor, for example a bug fix, but this is the ultimate tier list for Season 4, so if you have any suggestions video-wise, please let me know in the comment section below so I can make those videos for you, and if I can talk about different subjects that would be crazy good. Again, big disclaimer, we made a tier which is tanks because I'm not willing to actually put them in any tier because let's be real, some tanks are good in RPGs, like let's say Guardian Druid, they are S tier in RPGs, they might be even good in 2v2. And Protection Warriors, they can cheese some wins, and Blood DKs too, and Protection Paladin too, but I'm not willing to actually put them in a tier, so for me this is just a tank tier. If you want to put them in your tier list somewhere else, you can do that. You can tell me in the comment section below what you think about those tanks, but for me it is really not rated. So let's go directly with Affliction Warlock. So Affliction Warlocks, they are very good. They are currently very meta. I don't know if it's got here because with the characters that I'm playing, Fury Warrior and also Marksmanship Hunter, I do also play Affliction Warlocks. I don't have a lot of difficulties versus Afflictions. I do eat them alive most of the time. In 2v2, they get wrecked mostly versus a lot of specs, a lot of classes, a lot of combinations. But they are very meta. They got the damage, but they always had since season 1. Actually, they always had the damage, so it felt like more of a placebo buff. Those damage buffs. But defensive wise, it is still just paper. So for me, it is A tier. It is meta. Now, is it better than some S tier specs? Yes. But is it also worse than some B tier specs? Yes, because again, it is a game of counters. It's just rock, paper, scissor gameplay sometimes. And an Affliction Warlock will probably not win versus a Marksmanship Hunter if he plays the correct combination in 3v3 or 2v2. And really, I feel like Affliction Warlocks are very good, but it is still very situational. Sometimes you're going to get wrecked, or sometimes versus casters, you are going to wreck people. And yes, that's also part of the meta at the moment. Arcane Mages, I'm going to tell you guys, it is for me a D tier spec. Overall, in 2v2, in 3v3, even in RPGs, even in WoW PvP, I don't really rate Arcane Mages very high. But why? Because I only have one school. And what that one school is locked behind Arcane, which is also locked with polymorphs, blinks, all the defensives actually are arcane school spells. So if you're getting interrupted or silenced, whatever, you're not going to actually cast anything. The good thing is you have mass invisibility, which is still very useful. You have also a lot of tools to actually survive damage. But if you play versus a purge team, let's say a turbo with enhancement shaman and a disc priest, you are not going to survive. It doesn't matter how you're going to do that, you're not going to survive. And that's for me a D tier spec. Although I think fun wise it might be higher. And if you're maining arcane mages, kudos to you. If you're getting glad, if you're getting duelist, whatever, very good from you. But it just means that you are actually carrying with a subpar spec. And if you turned to a fire mage, for example, it would be infinitely faster and easier for you to climb. But kudos to you if you are actually maining arcane mages. Arms Warriors. So, I do rate Arms Warriors very, very high. In comparison with my colleagues, I feel like Arms Warriors are very good, and the only reason why people play Fury at this moment is because of the 4-set. If the 4-set didn't proc Reckless Abandon, I feel like Arms would be legit very good. But for now, we do rate Arms Warrior B tier. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It is for me meta, but I rate it in B tier because there is a lot of classes that are actually very annoying for Arms Warriors. They do feel like paper. Mostly, if you play Stormbolt, you are actually a bit greedy. You should play Impending Victory most of the time. I rate Fury Arms Warrior very high myself. If I could rate it with my own heart, subjectively, I would put it in A tier. But I know that most people, and also just in general, they do rate Arms Warrior even C tier or D tier. So for me, it's a good compromise to put that at B tier for that said reasons. I feel like Moral Strike is a very good spell. I feel like executes damage on arms warriors is actually very very nice. You have loads of covenants, you have loads of comps, you have loads of flexibility. Your PvP talents is really a box of pleasure for your comp. You can really help your comp with your PvP talents, which is not a selfish spec at all, and that's for me a B tier spec. So it's average, doesn't mean that it's bad, it doesn't mean that it's not meta, it doesn't mean that it is unplayable, it just means like it has counters, it is quite obvious the counters that they have, and that's why they deserve B tier. Assassination Rogue for me overall is a B tier spec. I'm going to explain you why. I'm playing a lot of Assassination Rogue at this moment, actually. I feel like they have the damage, but it's very cyclical. Sometimes you will just pop off and kill someone, and then you will have to wait 2 minutes before the next go, or you have to play with a priest that plays Night Phase so you can get DCDs a bit faster back. But it doesn't warrant higher than that. I feel like Assassination Rogues are the easiest rogues to face in any content. Maybe in a 1v1 you can't really defend yourself versus an Assassination Rogue because they can't just Emphasis Vendetta Shiv and then vanish to get maximum damage on you, for example. But most of the time, in 2v2, in 3v2, or even in RBGs, I feel like they are too CD reliant. Without CDs, they are really doing less damage than a healer, and that's my opinion. I know some people would detest that, but I feel like if you're playing Assassination Rogue and you turned to a Sublety Rogue or an Outlaw Rogue, your life would be easier. That's how I see it at the moment. I also like Assassination Rogue. I can actually wait for Dragonflight to actually change the assassination spec to actually be decent in consistent damage. But for now, it deserves only B tier. It's average. It can be meta versus a few comps. It can be also very bad versus a lot of comps. IMO, if I'm playing a hunter, I'm playing like a survival hunter versus an assassination rogue. No way you're going to win except if you're killing the healer. Of course, there's a lot of YouTubers, streamers that actually play Assassination Rogue and they do make them feel OP, but it doesn't mean that it's OP. Like I see a lot of compilations of like one shots from Arcane Mages. It doesn't mean that it's actually a S tier spec, right? So I see that we don't have the boomy icon, but let's say that this is Boomkin. I'm going to write it also on the timestamps. This is Boomkin, and for me, Boomkin is actually a B tier spec. No, I would say A tier spec. It's meta. Why? I'm going to explain you right away because I already see you typing. Why is Boomy A tier, man? It has no consistent damage, man. It's mostly bear form, man. Really, RBGs, they are the kings with Affliction Warlocks, caster-wise. 3v3, actually, you're doing very fine. If you're building full mastery, you can really do serious damage whenever you're actually popping off. Of course, you will have to play a comp that actually complements with your setup style gameplay. If you play with a DH or a warrior, it's going to be quite fun. If you're playing with a caster, I feel like you're going to have a bit less fun. You really need a melee to complement your damage and your utility and your survivability, and that's why for me it's a 8 tier spec. I think it's meta in a lot of compartments, and it can be very average. For example, in twos where you will like the consistent damage, you will like the actual kill pressure at all times. While in 3v3, you have your DH to do that, or you'll have your warrior to do that, and you are the Star Surge or Starfall machine, and you're going to help your melee to score a kill by a root beam, for example, or a good cyclone, or a good CC on the healer. It is plenty to actually have the kill pressure on said enemy team. BM Hunters, I'm going to tell you that I've quite changed my mind. I think it's not as god tier as it was, and for that reason, I'm putting it in meta. For me, it is a meta spec. It does very good versus specific specs. It does a bit less versus other specs. For me, it's very good versus casters because again, you're always mobile. You can actually peek and go away every time around the pillar, and you can really set up your own traps really easily, I would say, compared to MM, where MM should and will probably take more risks to get a trap going. But as a BM, you have also the inconvenience to have a great burst window. You have a consistent burst window, so it's a bit lower than, let's say, a marksmanship hunter, which has crazy burst, but the consistent damage is very nice. And having your traps, having set comps like, for example, jungle really be a valid and great comp to play, feels like it is deserving the meta spot. And A tier is the meta spot. I'm going to say it's very hard to actually rate which spec is better than others, but I feel like BM is still very nice. I think a lot of people are stepping away from BM because they actually finally see the value in Marksmanship Hunter, and I'm very happy to see that. Although it's a bit less funny whenever you see a lot of MMs in matchmaking compared to previously, for example. But it just means that the spec works and that people can actually notice that the specs actually work. So Demonology Warlock for me is a S tier spec. I'm going to explain why. If you are going to rate RBGs though, it is not S tier, so let's be real. I mean, for that reason alone, is it just God tier or is it just meta? I would say it's meta because, again, the problem is in RBGs, it is not S tier at all, it's D tier, in my opinion. They are good, they are quite tanky. Now people can actually kill Demonology Warlocks because they actually know what is going on. Sometimes they are just going to turn on your pet and your pet is dying, and then you are kinda trying to fight your way towards summoning the new pet. The Fel Domination is dispellable, so if a priest is well aware that the pet is dying, you just spam dispel all the time, and if they don't have a Resto Druid, it will pretty much just get dispelled instantly. It's a good spec, although I think it's very annoying to play against. I don't like the actual idea of Demonology Warlocks. I feel like they need to just rebuild it from scratch. I really liked the previous iterations of Demonology Warlock, but again, if you're a main of Demonology Warlock, I think you should be happy with the place of in this meta. It's not God tier anymore because you will also notice whenever you're playing Demonology Warlock, people actually stop the tyrant. Sometimes they just kill the tyrant straight. Sometimes, as an MM hunter, if I feel like I'm not going to kill the Demonology Warlock because it has walls, I have double tap on me, I would just kill the pet directly, or I would kill the tyrant directly with a rapid fire double tap and running away. Because they popped their CDs, so you're not going to kill anyone. So why not kill the pet? Then you're safe. And it's basically that is very annoying for the Mojo Warlock to actually deal with IMO. But for me, yeah, it's a meta spec. It's a meta spec. And let's talk about a bad spec for a second. Destruction Warlocks. Is it on the level as Arcane Mage? I don't think so, because they have and they do have 3 schools like Fire, Shadow, and Chaos. Of course, getting kicked on Chaos is probably what's the most likely to happen, because people will not kick on Fire mostly, and they will also probably try to not kick on Shadow. They will try to see you on Shadow. But it's too squishy. It just gets wrecked by half of the cost. A Fury Warrior will just have insane fun versus you. You're not going to have fun. I feel like Destruction Warlock is the only comp where you can have remotely a bit of fun is playing with a Frost Mage, but a Frost Mage will not have fun in that comp because they will just get carried, like not carried, but they will just get focused, or the Destruction Warlock gets focused. So it's one of you guys is not going to have fun versus half of the cast. And then, of course, if you're playing versus casters, and that's going to be very awesome. You will be feeling like a field trip. It's going to be fun for you. But then when you will play versus a melee cleave, let's say a Fury Warrior with a Demon Hunter, or with a Retribution Paladin, or even worse with an Enhancement Shaman, you're going to detest your moment as a Destruction Warlock. And I'm speaking about trees. In twos, it is garbage. In RBGs, it is actually also garbage because the whole team will just jump on you. You will not be able to cast anything. Peel or not, you're not going to cast anything. Maybe one 4-set proc in total would be happening in a team fight, but that's probably not going to change anything with the amount of healers, the amount of peel, the amount of damage that there is. Destruction Warlocks is just not a great class. For me, it's a C tier spec. I hope in Dragonflight they do change it in the positive direction. But it seems like it is changing very well. But we just need to actually see how it's going to be live. And I wish I had the alpha to test every spec, but for now I don't have alpha, or maybe the beta, maybe soon. That will be really lit to actually show you guys the things that I'm talking about. Disc Priest, for me, it's a S tier spec at healing in general. Let me explain. RBGs, they are the king of healers, regardless. They have Big Dome, which is 50% damage reduction on a 1.5 minute cooldown. In a team fight, it is going to be massive. Base suppression is also quite good because if you're stunned, you can defend yourself or you can also defend other people. And you have Atonement Healing, which is pretty big in RBGs. And in threes, you're going to have a very fun time. In twos, it's a bit less because you don't have the CC to back up. For example, you will have to play with a rogue or with a hunter to actually compensate the lack of CC. But Disc Priest at the moment is in a very good spot because they didn't get really touched. They are quite good at healing, they're quite good at damage. And if you're playing Kyrian, you will probably one-shot someone at one point in the game. Or if you're playing Venthyr, you can have mind games, which is super fun. Or you can play Night Fae and you can really just defend your teammates correctly, having the CDs up faster, and it is probably the most meta covenant for you guys if you're playing Disc Priest. Elemental Shaman. Elemental Shaman is for me A tier. It's very good, very strong. People sleep on it. They don't still not noticing the amount of damage that Elemental Shaman can put out whenever they are not focused. I think it's very hard to focus Elemental Shaman whenever you're playing with an Affliction Warlock, for example. But again, it justifies the A tier spot. It is super strong. It scales super well. It didn't really get nerfed since I don't know when. Like it's very very good. And people that want to play caster for the first time should play Elemental Shaman because it's one of the, I would not say the easiest, but it's one of the more beginner friendly casters to play because you have 2 schools, even 3 schools if you're counting Frost as well, or even 4 if you're counting Elemental Blast, but you will not play Elemental Blast. But you have so many great things going on. You have a lot of PvP talents that are actually useful for you. You will have a wind shear on a 12-second CD, so you have an interrupt, which is a lot lower than, let's say, normal traditional casters. So it's very good for you as a caster to have that. And Purge is also very big. And I think Elemental Shaman, they are really fighting for that S tier spot, but I think S tiers, that's a different breed. I'm going to discuss it a bit further in the video. Enhancement Shaman, it is B tier. Can it be meta? Yes, purely because of Turbo. But is it deserving anything else outside of Turbo? Not really. I think the spec by itself doesn't really work 100%. I think it's a very fun spec, but I think they lack a lot of things that actually Dragonflight will tackle. So Dragonflight will be very, very good to play. I can't wait to actually test Enhancement Shaman. But for now, Shadowlands, they lack some things. I feel like sometimes you're relegated to a Chain Harvest bot, or you're playing Necrolord, and then you will do a bit more damage, but then you will lag some sustain. So it's a give or take, and I think Enhancement Shaman, they are in a normal spot. They do deserve a buff, but I don't think they will do that in season 4. And I think if you're playing an Enhancement Shaman and you have a warrior mate, you will have a great time in 2s, you will have a great time in 3s, and in RBGs, I think if someone can give you some shot to actually perform in RBGs, you can have fun also as well in RBGs. But for now, it is a B tier spec. Feral Druids, I think they are A tier. I'm going to explain why it's not S tier because, again, I'm taking all parts PvP wise into account. I feel like RBGs, they are not S tier at all. I think in 2s, they are not S tier at all because you're facing survival hunters, you're facing outlaw rogues, you're facing annoying specs to actually deal with. But then in 3s, you're actually very S tier. You are very good. I think Feral Druids are slept on. Kitty Cleave is so strong. Jungle, so strong. You can actually play with a caster as well. You can even play with a Demon Hunter. So basically, it's the same as a Boomy Demon Hunter, but you will play Feral Demon Hunter, and it gives you a bit the same. Like, I still have Cyclone, you still have a lot of roots, so you can root a melee and basically give them a non-factor role. They are strong. So you guys, if you again fun wise, I don't think it's very fun to play Feral. Whenever I'm playing Feral, I don't really like it, but I can understand why people do. Um, it's a good spec. So guys, if you wanna main Feral Season 4, just do it. It's a very good spec, and you will notice that you will do actually very good with it. So fire mages for me are still S tier. In overall, I would not say S tier because in RPGs they are really bad. I'm really counting RPGs as well. So for me it's A tier because of RPGs. But if you're taking RPGs out of the account, out of the blue, like the actual calculations, I would then put it in S tier. It's a very good spec. Has a lot of tools to survive, has a lot of tools to do actually very good damage. It's a setup class which doesn't rely on 2 minute CDs, 3 minute CDs. It just every 1 minute you can really do a go with your Sublety Rogue. You're playing RMP and your Sublety Rogue does a kidney, so often and not they will just trinket it. If they don't, you have a combust, you will kill the target. If they do, they survive. Next combust go, they are dead. And that's mostly what's going to happen every game, except if you're trained till death and you can't really do anything versus that. Then I would then suggest to play a bit more defensively. But as a fire mage, you can really carry games. And I think that's the reason why it's meta for me. In total, RBGs wise, I would not play Fire Mage, but I can understand why people would, but I would not do that. Frost Mages. Frost Mages for me is a. It's hard to put in C tier, but I would say it's C tier, around the same level as Destruction, because again, in RPGs, it's not very good, except if you're free casting, but then again, that's more the problem for the enemy team. In 3v3, you are alright, because you still have Caustic Cleaves, you can do something, you can play Iceland's builds even, but I feel like if you're playing any other class or spec with your teammate, you're going to have a lot easier to actually win games. I feel like it's too easy to shut down a Frost Mage. You're going to kick Frost and they are kind of screwed. While, for example, Fire Mages, if you kick Fire, the enemy team is screwed. The friendly team is going to get screwed because you will have polymorphs to still cast, Ring of Frost to still cast, so you have a lot of tools to actually survive, and you can even still blink. So fire mages, they want to actually get, not the fire mage itself, but your teammates want to interrupt the polymorphs, or even for Ring of Frost, but I would say polymorphs because then they cannot blink. But if you kick fire, then you have no kick for polymorphs, and then they are kinda going to kill you in a combust go. So that's for me is just a big difference between Frost, Arcane, and also Fire Mage. Just easier to play. Has a lot more tools to actually survive. Has a lot of more tools to actually do damage, even when trained. Frost DK. Okay, since RBGs are counted into it, it is a C tier spec. I'm going to explain why. In RBGs, they are S tier. They are very good. They are probably one of the best, if not the best, melee class spec in RPGs. But in 2v2 and 3v3, it is just miserable. It is actually miserable to play. And I really hope Dragonflight does fix that. For that, it isn't really the case. But Frost Decay deserves a C tier because they are underpowered. They need buffs to actually perform well. And it's very hard to actually buff a good RPG spec while being bad in arenas, because you're going to make them even better in RPGs, and in arenas it could be like average, but I don't know. It's very hard to actually balance Frost Decay. Me myself, I don't really. Sometimes I'm thinking like, what can I change on Frost Decay to actually make it viable in arenas? But if you do that, they are going to get busted. So it's very hard to actually deal with that, and I just have all the compassion in the world for devs because I feel like they have a hard job to actually balance the overall game. Fury Warriors S tier. I think it is one of the most complete melees that you can have in the game. I rate the 4 set as one of, if not the best 4 set in the game. It just gives you your last talent for free every time you're getting a proc, and sometimes you can be very lucky and you have like full procs and you will have like a 30-second uptime recklessness, or sometimes you don't have a lot of luck and you don't have a proc of recklessness. But again, that chance of proccing recklessness, like reckless abandon from PvP from your talents, is just insane. And I feel like Fury Warriors by itself, they are very good in RBGs. I think I've put them at A tier if I'm correct. I think A tier or A plus, something like that. They are very good in twos. In my opinion, they are close to God tier in twos. In threes, they are really, really strong. Also very good God tier or even God tier at least meta to God tier depending on the specs you're playing versus. I think Fury Warriors, they are very, very insane. Guys, just profit from Fury Warriors. I feel like in Dragonflight it still is going to be the Fury Warrior, but Arms Warrior will also get a return of the favor, because Dragonflight is going to change a lot of things. I feel like Warriors in general is just a fantastic pick if you want to have a safe spec to play in every content. I feel like Warriors are notoriously never bad in PvP. If it's not Fury, it will be Arms. If it's not Arms, it's going to be Fury. I feel like if you're a Warrior, it doesn't really matter if you're playing Fury or Arms, because the gameplay is still a bit the same. It's not like you're casting Chaos Bot and then you're casting corruption, for example. It's more like you're casting Moral Strike or you're casting Rampage. It's quite the same. Still melee, still a Moral Strike effect, still damage. So again, if you want to choose a melee spec to play with, play Warriors and you're going to enjoy your time. Demon Hunters, I want to put them in A tier but I'm quite biased though, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. If I follow my heart, it would be S tier because I'm playing Affliction Warlocks, but I think it gets countered by too many specs. Like in twos, if you face a Survival Hunter, I think you know what I'm talking about with Steel Trap. It is your bane. You are going to get insane in that 8-second route. And I think the damage is quite nice, the sustain is quite nice. But without Blur, without Darkness, you are one of the squishiest targets out there to actually kill. And I think Darkness is one of the most frustrating abilities to press. So is Blur, to be honest, but Darkness sometimes just doesn't help you. You will need to pop Darkness at 100% HP, and it is not really automatic for you to do that, because it's very hard to actually think, okay, I'm not safe at 100% HP. Of course, you are going to think you're safe at 100% HP. You're not going to do Darkness. But often than not, if you don't Darkness at 100%, it is actually already too late for the double tap, for example, on a Marksmanship Hunter. So for me, it is a B tier spec for that. Holy Paladin for me is B tier. I would say even C tier, but I'm not going to be too harsh. It is B tier because it's not good in this meta. I feel like if you're playing versus casters, you have nothing to protect your teammates. If you're playing versus melee creeps, good, you have 2 bobs, which is quite nice. But outside of that, you're going to be very squishy without bubble. Once your bubble is gone, you are dead. If they are like a bit intelligent, they know your bubble is gone, they're going to go for you and you're going to get killed. And versus Affliction Warlocks, you're going to have a bad time, for example. Versus Shadow Priest 2, versus a lot of specs, you're going to have a bad time. And for me, it is an average spec. You can still climb with it. I know some people thrive as a Holy Paladin, and that's good for them. But for me, it is just an average healer. But you cannot really be choosing specs whenever you're playing a DPS. You just take the first healer that is available, often in your PR range, and you just hope for the best. Beggars can't be choosers most of the time. Holy Priest, for me, it is hard to actually rate because RBGs. I'm going to rate them at A tier because of twos. I think in twos you're still god tier because you have a lot of tools. In threes, I think you are still good because your res Lego can just ruin a lot of comps. You still have setup, you still have damage, you still have great healing, single target though, not AoE. And just based on that fact, I think it's still a very good spec to play. Would I prefer Disc Priest over Holy Priest at the moment? Yes, because I think it's better to heal AoE than only single target. But I can understand why people would play Holy Priest for different reasons. Chastise, the Guardian Spirit, even the Res Lego can also save you multiple times. The damage is quite nice also with Holy Fire, and I think in general you have a great time whenever you're playing Holy Priest. So that's why for me it is a meta spec. Marksmanship Hunter, I'm going to say it's a A tier spec. It has risen on top of the ladders these days. They are very good in RPGs. I would say they are very, 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 very good in RPGs. I would say even on par with Affliction and Boomy. But I'm a bit biased because I do play MM. In twos, you are very strong. You have obvious counters, of course, but you can really one-shot people. You're also the king of double DPS, so if you want to play double DPS with a rogue or with another MM, you can have a lot of fun with that. And just in general, I think Marksmanship Hunter is a fantastic spec. They will get changed in Dragonflight a bit, and I'm excited to play them. But for now, it is a meta spec, and you should cherish that. I did make a guide video for Marksmanship Hunter, so if you want to check that out, you can. And I'll probably make a video for the best 2v2 comps and 3v3 comps for Marksmanship Hunters. So be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that content. So, Mistweaver Monk, for me, it is a B tier spec. I think it's on par with Holy Paladin, but it's a bit the same. They're very good versus classes if you play with a caster cleave. Remember, playing a caster cleave, if you play a melee cleave, you should play like fist weaving. If you're not fist weaving, you will have a lot of difficulties with just casting spells because they will just silence and interrupt you whenever they want, whenever you are actually casting. So, they're very good with classes because of revival. They also have Cocoon, which is still a very big CD. And in general, I think they like the damage. They like the defensive options for physical damage. They do die very, very fast, and they do need 3 GCDs to actually heal correctly whenever you don't have HOTS. So yeah, I think fist weaving is something that is very, very good on Mistweaver. So if you want to try melee cleaves with a Mistweaver, just play fist weaving. I think a lot of YouTubers already discussed that. So if you want to see guides for Mistweavers, please check them out, and you will probably learn how to fist weave as efficiently as possible. Outlaw Rogue, they are still S tier, very good, very annoying to play. Must I say more? I think it's just disgusting to play against. I just don't like to play versus Outlaw Rogue most of the time, and I think just because of that, they just deserve God tier. They are not God tier in RPGs though. I think Sublety is probably better. But overall, in twos, in threes, even in RPGs a bit, they can really do a lot of damage. They can do a lot of CC. They are very annoying, very tanky. They can really be a poison to the enemy team. So for me, it is a god tier spec. Okay, now we are talking about Restoration Druid. And for me, Resto Druid is on par with Disc Priest. It is a fantastic spec at the moment. You can seriously do a lot of damage, a lot of opportunities, a lot of comps where you can actually play and perform. You're very good in RPGs. People say that Resto Druids are not that great in RPGs, but I beg you to differ. They are fantastic flag carrier healers. They also have Cyclone, which is a unbreakable CC for the enemy team. They are very, very versatile in how they heal, in how they CC. Of course, damage-wise, it is very low, but it is one of the best mobile healers you can play at the moment. For me, Disc Priest and Resto Druid are it's a different side of the same coin. You can play a more passive game with Resto Druid, or you can play a more aggressive, no CC game or less CC game with your Disc Priest. So you can play both and have the best of both worlds as a character. So I would recommend to play Resto Druid any time of the day. Resto Shamans for me, they are becoming A tier. I think a lot of people underestimate Resto Shamans a bit. They are very, very strong. They are really notoriously very satisfying to play too. You have also an interrupt. You have also totems to defend you. You will heal insanely amounts with your healing tide if you put it at a great spot. It is very difficult to actually attack that and destroy that. Often than not, they can also just ignore that, and those happen in lower CR games. But in general, you will actually be satisfied to play Resto Shaman. So I would recommend to play it if you like a more aggressive type of gameplay as a healer. Retribution Paladin. I feel like it's between Arms and Fury, so I would say it's A tier. You will see a lot of A tiers because I think the meta is very balanced in general. I think Ion is really, really correct. I think the balance is alright. Would I like some changes on Frost, Destro, and Frost DK? Yes, I would like to. Even in Arcane Mage, even Warriors, even I would say tanks would be cool to have also some PvP changes with them. But for now, I think if you're playing Retribution Paladin, you have like two great comps, which is Cupid and of course playing with a warrior. So Retribution Paladin warrior in twos or in threes. And you can really enjoy your time. I feel like the nerfs were not really nerfs, and you do not really notice the damage difference with the nerfs on wings. So for me, it's a very good spec. It is meta. You do get countered by Affliction Warlocks, for example, but if you don't play a lot of Affliction Warlocks on the ladder, you can really enjoy your time versus a variety of comps. Shadow Priest for me is a B tier spec in general. Again, I can understand why people would put that in S tier or A tier based on utility, based on defensive gameplay. But I feel like in RPGs, or I feel like just damage wise, it lacks something. It has the initial burst, which is possible. You have also the CC to apply on the healer, which is also very nice to actually kill targets. But I feel like by itself it is not strong. It just needs to support someone to actually perform well, to actually be good in the meta. So for me, it is a B tier spec. It's average. It doesn't mean that it's not meta. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means it is average. It is countered by lots of lots of specs. In twos, you are non-existent, for example. In threes, you are good with a rogue, with an affliction warlock, for example. But I mean, does it warrant anything higher than B tier? I don't think so. Sublety Rogues, they are S tier. I think Sublety Rogues are definitely S tier just because of the damage that it does, the actual moments that they can actually kill someone. It's basically every 30 seconds. They have insane CDs. I think it's very annoying to play versus them. They can just cloak. Even dots don't really get them out of stealth anymore because you have crazy conduits to actually complement with that playstyle. I think it's just S tier in general. I don't really know what to say. They are very good in twos. I would say even god tier in twos. They are god tier in RPGs. They are very good, even god tier in threes. So in RPGs and in threes and in twos. So I feel like they are the best class in general. Rogues, they are very good. I think it's the best class in the game. And if you're taking just a spec, I think Sublety is probably one of, if not the best spec overall at the moment in Shadowlands. They will get nerfs in Dragonflight. They will have a 5-second CD, 5-second kidney shot, which is very good because you will not see a 7-second kidney shot again. So that will be very, very fun to actually play against now, especially if you're an orc. But yeah, I mean, those two specs are very, very good. Survivor Hunters, they are A tier. I'm going to explain why. They are not great in RPGs. I think it's also garbage. In twos, it is very strong. It is god tier. In threes, it is A tier, B tier. I don't know, man. It's very strong. Like, it has insane damage. It just has silly comps, and you will have a lot of difficulties to actually perform well. But I think a survivor hunter can really burst very highly and very often. And so for me, it deserves the A tier. In general, it's a very meta spec, and it's very mobile, very annoying, very slippery, and deserves the A spot. Unholy DK for me it's a A tier spec. I can't really put them at S tier because I feel like they are not as good as Fury overall. Although sometimes you can feel Unholy DK being better than Fury. I think they have a lot of natural counters. Like for example, Fury Warriors itself, they do eat Unholy DKs alive. You have insane burst, you have insane damage, you have insane defensive capacities versus casters, for example, but you do like the physical defense versus the physical melees, for example, or even a marksmanship hunter can also eat you alive, and that for me is a reason why they would be A tier. They are very close to S tier though, so don't get me wrong, they are still very good. Windwalkers, so Windwalkers, they are for me B tier. I think overall they are very risky to play. You can enjoy your time sometimes as a Windwalker, and then sometimes you will tell yourself like, I'm just going to die from nothing. You have no defensives, you are a setup based spec, but you have a kit of a warrior mostly, so you will play around the leg sweep, around your actual necrolord ability with spirit, earth spirit and fire ghosts thingy, and trying to one shot someone whenever you're doing go. But whenever it doesn't work and you have like a comp versus you that actually can kite you very well, you become really useless. So it's a bit like a Sublety Rogue, but a more difficult Sublety Rogue. You don't have stealth, you don't have the capacities to actually kill every 30 seconds like a Sublety Rogue. So for me, it just deserves a B tier overall. In RBGs, it is not very good. And in 2s, in 3s, you can of course one-shot people, but does it happen as often as you would think? I don't think so. So for me, this is the ultimate tier list video completed. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about the video. I think in general, the balance is really great. You will see that most specs, I would say 90% or even 85% of the specs of the whole cast is B tier or above, which is quite fantastic. And then you have like 4 outliers, which Frost Mages, Destruction Warlock, Frost DK, and Arcane Mages, they are really terrible and they do need a buff or a help somewhere. But for now, it is not the case. I think in Dragonflight they do change quite a lot, so we will see if it will get them a bit higher on the tier list. But for now, I think Season 4 has been really great. I think with Wrath of the Lich King just around the corner, people will kind of leave towards Wrath of the Lich King, which is understandable because you really play for only a title at the moment in Season 4. You don't even have a set to grind, you don't have really cosmetics to play for because the enchantment is not really great, and you don't have any new sets to grind for. So for me, Season 4 is just a fun season until you get Dragonflight, until you play Wrath of the Lich King, until you play any other game, really. So thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Subscribe to this channel if you like those kinds of videos. Subscribe to my second channel if you want to see some Warzone videos. I do make Warzone videos as well. And also like the video if you like the video. Comments below what you think about the meta, about the tier list. Am I correct? Am I not correct? Please debate with me if I'm not correct. Just don't type, it is a bad tier list, ha ha ha. Just say me what's wrong so I can actually improve myself or make you change your minds. It could also be and could also happen. So thank you for watching. Have a great day and we will see each other very soon. Bye.